Hi, I'm Drew D'Amelia, and today's movie is 50 Shades Darker. Who could forget the amazing 50 Shades of Grey, which took all the panties and turned them into a water park full of slippery fun. And now, we get to have an even bigger water park, with more sloshy goodness. I thought 50 Shades Darker was really bad. I don't find myself making this judgment call with many movies, but this was honestly a movie where there was barely a plot. I can usually find some kind of plot in even the shittiest of movies, but nothing really happened in this movie. There would be a porn scene, and then they'd introduce a really dramatic conflict, and then the conflict would be resolved in literally 5 minutes, that's not an exaggeration, and then they'd do it all over again. It was just a series of porn and problems. And you might think the problems count as plot, and they're dramatic, so they must be interesting problems, but the thing is, these problems are resolved in 5 minutes, and you really don't have enough time to get attached to them. A general rule is, if your dog is missing, the longer your dog is missing, the more of an engaging problem it becomes. If you realize that your dog was just hiding behind the couch 5 minutes after you thought you lost it, that's not really that compelling, is it? These were literally the problems, ready? First, the main girl's boss tried to rape her. His rape personality basically came out of nowhere. Then the girl kneed him in the balls and ran away, and that never really came up again. I guess what's coming up is technically spoilers, so skip to this spot if you don't want to be spoiled. The second problem was there was a crazy ex-girlfriend with a gun who wanted to kill the main girl. But then, the boyfriend came in and told the ex-girlfriend to listen to him and put the gun down. And so she did. And then that never came up again. It was at this point that I was beginning to suspect that the movie had a pattern of porn and a random dramatic problem solved immediately. I doubted myself, thinking the movie had to do something more than that. This is when the boyfriend suddenly got into a dramatic helicopter crash that was completely at odds with the tone of the movie. He was missing for 3 minutes of screen time. Then the news said he was alive, and literally 2 seconds after this announcement, the boyfriend entered the girlfriend's apartment. Like, oh, here I am, I'm alive! Here's the thing, the original movie did have a premise. It follows a girl who isn't sure if she should get involved in a BDSM relationship or find a normal boyfriend. In the sequel, she just does both. She has a normal boyfriend who also does BDSM with her, which, to the movie's credit, is virtually how every BDSM relationship works. But, to the movie's discredit, this is not an interesting conflict! The movie is also really irresponsible with the way they portray BDSM. I had an issue with the first movie because it was portraying a BDSM person as only into BDSM because he had a tortured past. While this is certainly possible, the issue is that this was the first real mainstream BDSM movie. I think it had a responsibility to paint BDSM in a fair and accurate light, seeing as it was most people's introduction to BDSM. By having the person into BDSM have been abused in the past, it really makes BDSM seem unhealthy. The sequel, rather than improve upon this, doubled down on it and more. The movie literally opened up with a nightmare of the BDSM boyfriend getting beaten as a child by his dad. They literally compared being a dom to being a sadist, and implied that his BDSM fetish had to do with his mommy issues and him wanting to fuck girls that looked like his mommy. They kept pushing and pushing that BDSM means you're a troubled person with a troubled past. The only defense against this is that the girlfriend, who did not have a troubled past, was into the BDSM also, but her pleasure was hardly emphasized. I will say that the porn was good. I personally went half-mast a couple of times. I think it was hotter than the porn in the first movie. Though, it was weird that they just skipped over blowjobs and jumped right to anal beads. Like, you think maybe a pussy could get eaten out first before shoving things up your asshole. Also, the only sexual position you really ever saw these two in was missionary. Like, how vanilla of them. So, don't see 50 Shades Darker. Watch porn instead. I will say that it's nice to see porn transitioning to a mainstream setting. There's something to be said for that. But this attempt to make porn a narrative movie was both irresponsible and immensely boring. Anyway, that's all from me. Now, get the fuck out of my house.